Good evening, everyone. If I can get your attention, we'll get started here. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. What a great turnout. We were just talking about if it was snowy or rainy or something like that, might not have been quite the turnout. But, driving here, this is almost exactly halfway across the lake for me. So 46 minutes. But what it reminds us is that we really should consider ourselves one community. And it's one of the problems we've had with our organization is that, we're in the South End, we're in the North End or whatever, but being forced to kind of circumnavigate the lake a little bit, you realize how beautiful, what a beautiful place we have here. And that's what we're all about. We're all fighting for making this such a great place and enjoyable for everybody today and into the future. And so, again, welcome and thanks for coming. And hopefully you'll learn a lot, engage with us. If you have any burning questions, raise a hand right away, but we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. So please try to remember after imbibing with, the great drinks here and everything. And Steve can't ask a question. All right. So are you getting? All right. Yeah, the mic might be a little bit sensitive. All right. So what I'm going to do tonight is we're going to talk business first. So we've got certain things we need to do as an organization. We're a member organization. So all of you that contribute are members, and so we have to do certain things and tell you about what we're doing. So we're going to tell you about our fiscal year, which ended at the end of May, how we did last year, and then we're going to talk about things we're doing this year a little bit. And then the board of directors is the biggest thing about the meeting. The membership elects the board of directors, and the board of directors actually selects officers on its own. You don't actually elect those directly. But so we have the board of director elections, and that's really the main business thing. Then we get to celebrate. So we've got some awards for some of the really great people that you'll meet that do great things for us. So we give out the awards and then celebrate the volunteers, the many volunteers that we have here. And then we're going to go into some spotlight talks, or what I'm calling spotlight talks. So 3 areas that are kind of this year that maybe you don't know about. And so we'll just do both of the Hemlock Woolly Delgid, the stream flow activities that we're doing, and a nutrient research focused on Clinocladafra and Hemlocks and phosphorus and bringing a lot of different things together. Collaboration with Finger Lakes Institute. All right, that's supposed to advance. Advance. Can you? All right. All right. So first thing is since basically I got here, 2016 and 17, you can see where we were as far as the scope of the organization. $60,000 or so. We weren't doing a whole lot of things. We were just starting our HAPS programs and monitoring programs. But you can see how this has grown to in the 300,000 range. This has taken a lot of work. There's a lot of people here that you can see that we have for the 23 to 24 spike in revenues was driven by a large gift and those in Triple Ocean. We're still spending that money, so it had a lot of so it was designated for we're still spending that money. So it's bad. It's a little bit negative over the last couple of years, but we're still basically, you know, it's a job, I think. All right. So this is for the fiscal year, June of 24 to May of 25. Uh, so we brought in over $250,000. You can see it's dues and donations. So that's uh, all everyday people. Included in that is the Rose Family Foundation, over $50,000 for an initiative that you'll hear about later. But very healthy, and we had a um, consultant that came in to help us with fundraising, and this is going to be a good news story that we're getting better. Expenses, you can see that we're a pretty responsible organization that's going toward mission. We have so many volunteers and would like to grow our staff, but the staff is doing mission type of things. It's not an admin sort of thing. We're really to the mission. So we've changed we had a software that helped us to count individuals. Now we've changed it to kind of a state of the art or best in class software platform and counts households. So compared to last year is not great, but I will tell you that 687 households is probably about a 15% increase over what we were the year prior. And this can be attributed to the consultant that we had and the dedicated work of our fundraising leadership committee. They're out there, they're doing stuff, they're making phone calls, they're doing leads. They are very, very active, and this is growing. The businesses are a great resource for our area. Again, capitalizing on the natural beauty of the area in business and growing and that symbiotic relationship, which you'll see a couple times later on. Hopefully this will continue to grow too. So this is good news on everything. All right. So we didn't get it done. One, because our our association director defected to our sister lake, Canandaigua, where she lives. So I got it, but she was great. So we're a little bit delayed in the report, but we put a lot of work into our annual report. So I highly encourage people that are interested in the organization to read that report because it's got a lot of information. And it's not totally comprehensive, but you're going to get a sense on how much we do here at Seneca Lake Pure Waters. So our copy editor or editor, she's working hard right now this weekend in soft copy, and then some have copies from so, people that can get on to some of the larger donors later on. I this is a great resource, and you can go back to previous years and just see the growth and all the new things that we're doing out there. So we talk about fundraising. There's a lot of things besides just individuals giving money. That top left is a business directory. So that's where a lot of the businesses are able to advertise. They give us money, but it's another good resource for the types of things that we do because we put a lot of articles in there about our activities and what the lake is and what's going on out there. We have the type of thing. We have the Seneca trail. We have Seneca 7 things going on that we collaborate with them. We had the wine show. All of that. So there's some different activities that it's a combination of getting resources, but also getting and educating people and making sure that they know what we're doing. So the bureau this year was very, very successful. I'm not going to spill the beans on how much, but it was successful. Gristine was the ball this year. Last year it was Watershed. The 23rd at 5 o'clock, we're going to do a reception at Gristine, and they're going to do their check presentation. So if you got to at the reception, Gristine's a great place, and really encourage that. So during the commercial campaign, obviously, with the meetings and this summer, and so it's kind of specialized centers, nutrient pollution reduction program, mulching campaign. So Don Clover has been instrumental in this couple of years, and so this is in the summer. It's been successful so far. We've gotten 13,000 streaming. So this is really big. So types of things we do stuff to actively push others that are responsible for doing projects. We don't contract and we don't do that sort of thing, but we can provide that local knowledge that they can leverage into getting grants for projects that otherwise wouldn't be able to do. So we're accelerating activities that help the lake. So that's going to close soon. So the last thing we mentioned before the part is strategic planning. So the organization should be thinking ahead and thinking strategically. Our strategic plan is 2001. We've done a lot of things well. Some things, not so much. But Chester, their is to make profits better. So they have a strategic process and grants for us, so it's not costing us very much at all. Our goal is once we'll get things done because of what you call a whirlwind. It's 80 or 110% of your time, right? So really, and our key part is to work on and so that's the that's developed into so all steps we need to take to really have decreasing phosphorus going into the lake, and phosphorus drives a lot of adverse environmental issues. So our goal, so talking, it's going to try to be responsible for projects and these things happen to try to make sure that they follow the instead of the easy low hanging fruit. They're doing a lot of money from the state to do this kind of stuff, so we make sure it's used effectively. So if anybody wants to help in this project, we absolutely welcome and need it. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to some picture from the city space in Geneva, in Castle Street. If a train's going, it's a little space right next to the train. So if you need a beer, you can get a beer and come over and do all that. But we have it's not as big as I'd like, but it's everybody is really pulling the weight, which I really appreciate. So here's the current world. Tony will to take the 2025 group will graduate. Um, for five that will continue to start pulling back a little bit. So uh, is so much issue. Um, it's going to continue to go. It's just starting to go since was film and other things. Joe was getting married tonight. It's her second rodeo. Um, she was, I guess we'd call it, in the in treasure. And some of us just the goal that's held us together a lot of times because she knows a lot of the skeletons in the closet and other things that have gone on in the organization. So I really appreciate their service and they're stepping just a little bit. And there's five of us that charging ahead and continuing on. So you spot some brothers, gives Kelly, Seth, and to, to, to just really busy also because taking some recent development courses, I guess, would be perhaps the right thing. Has found out that he loves people. So we're to that and use him to do it. So, person, but as well, Deborah was several like us, they're here. Um, Joe, Joe, and he's got a lot of skills that we're going to really take advantage of. So hopefully, this is the coup de grace. The movement is that we're going to have a vote. So, so this is going to be, I hope, easy. I'm just going to ask for a show of hands and eyes. So with the slate of candidates. So in post, well done. So as I said, the officers so the burn will have session. So we officers which like to answers committees and chairs. This is the so this is the future. We'll see some familiar faces there. So the whole chat is that since James Chair of has agreed to become treasurer. And so, and I like this because it's company we don't have any vacancy as our director. Service is really, really important to keep them going. Otherwise, we would, I think, have some problems. So I appreciate all the other officers stepping up and continuing on. All right. So for what I think is the fun part, I love some achievements. That's why I'm doing this. You can reflect on all the different things that you're doing and the things that we're doing. So, and the first one is the Rich Adams President's Award. So Rich Adams was a previous board member. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. We felt so high basically. So this was that actually select. I get some help from other people, but I have the final authority. And so the show, if you can step up, she doesn't want to do this.
I didn't want to steal Bill's thunder. He was on a roll there. I see Jill, I think, maybe 8 days a week, if there are 8 days a week. She's really, I think, the glue, and I've had the honor of working with her for the past year. And I think everyone who's involved with this that we will really miss her. So Jill has been involved with Pure Waters for over a decade. She has held leadership roles, including vice president of operations, treasurer and committee leadership and events, membership, organizational development, lake level, and finance. Jill has led fundraising events, shared Pure Water's mission at community gatherings like Drumstock. If anyone was there this past weekend, Jill was out there, and provided hands-on support for accounting and administration. She's really knowledgeable, dedicated, and think she's been a guiding force for Pure over this decade. So we're proud to represent President's Award.
So the next one, we actually have two recipients. The board couldn't, so this one's decided by the board. And we had great nominations. And we went through, this probably took half an hour or more at a board meeting. And we couldn't make a decision. So we just, some white individual just said, well, let's get two. And so that's what we're doing. So if Sue can come, we're going to, we took the roads for that to all.
Yeah, you got to sleep around. Yeah, so Mary Gridley has been a stream monitor for more than a decade. She was recruited by Mary Rose herself and then carries on Mary's legacy as a stream lead for Big Stream. He's been a longtime Habs volunteer. She has great attention to detail, very committed, and she's been a very valuable provider. So let's give a round of applause for and Sue Martin has devoted many years of service, often alongside her stream monitoring, lake water quality, HABs efforts, CSLAP, and I'm going to mispronounce this, even though I asked Jill at the office yesterday, Kokoraz, Kokora, and the Lake Level Committee. Sue's consistent support helps ensure the success of the programs year after year. Let's give a round of applause for Sue. And I would all after. So
So the Howard H. Kimball Memorial Founders Award. So if Don, you can come up. So again, after the Tripp Foundation and Howard Kimball's passing, we decided that this was the appropriate name for this award. So again, Don.
Trophy, yeah. Don Klober has been a creative thinker, generous benefactor, and tireless advocate for the lake. He provided leadership for the kiosk project at Sampson State Park, contributed substantial support to the sediment, nutrient, and pollution reduction program, and has recruited volunteers and donors to multiply the impact of his work. Don's dedication reflects not only his resources, but his heart for Seneca Lake. We are proud to present Don with the Friends of Seneca Founders Award. Please give a round of applause for Don.
All right. Thank you, all of them. There are many more people that are very worthy, but you know, these are the ones that we selected this year. So I also want to thank everybody that volunteers for our organization. So we talk about needing money as resources, but human resources are probably more important, actually, for this organization. Getting all the citizen scientists, the people that work on the board, the people that work in committees, all sorts of people are working to help our organization. And so no matter what your skill sets are, I'll just put a plug out here, is that, you know, we can use you somewhere. You know, it's not just out in the field. So just to give you an idea, just for the field activities, we have over 180 volunteers. We have about 14 different programs where our accounting is maybe not quite that great, but 3,500 hours, plus all the people on the board and committees and et cetera. Basically, that's well over $100,000 equivalent if we were paying staff, and probably a lot more. So it makes a difference. It's a big deal. And this just gives you a little bit idea of the different kinds of things that you can do out there. We're outside, we're doing stuff and making a difference. So again, we need volunteers, no matter what your skill sets. I think, I don't know, do we have volunteer sheets out here today? If we do, great. They're out at the desk, at the entering guest. Sign up. It's not a commitment, but we'll contact you. We'll try to find a space that matches your interests with our needs. And as I mentioned before, we do not have an association director right now. So we are hiring. We haven't found the perfect candidate yet. So we're looking for more applications. So if you have someone in mind, or make sure people know that I think we're a great place to work. It's a compelling mission, and very gratifying work. We try to be competitive. We are small, we're a nonprofit, but there's a lot of other aspects to it, including working with great people. So consider, you know, kind of pushing it out there and encouraging people to apply. All right, so just in closing this first part, I'd really like to thank the events team, Kelly, Mark and Jody and Jill, and I know I'm forgetting everybody, but really great job in putting this all together. Usually when you're doing these kind of events, there's panic at the end. And to be honest, on Monday, we were all like, oh, this is fine. We've got it. So great job by everybody in putting this together. And again, thank you everybody for coming. So now we're going to switch into the overview topics. The first topic is Jim McGinnis is going to come up here. He's going to tell you about Hemlock woolly adelgid. Big program that we just started this last year, and very important. We may be a little bit behind the power curve on it, but Jim is really helping us step up and making this work.
Thanks, Bill. And I was really excited to be given the opportunity to talk about the condition that we started. and we're going to do new treatments this fall. So this was February 26th. We had a beautiful Wednesday. The sun was out, and this was the training for our hemlock hunters. And that's Linda Sampson, Phil Cherry, Stu Masseur, Jake Welch, and Charlie Fossil. Also, Bill Haberfield was a trained individual, and we had help from Dan Corbett and others for hemlock hunting. So where did this come from? The invasive species committee, and that committee had a webinar that was led by Carrie Marshner, who is a key member of the New York State Hemlock Initiative at Cornell. And what they are doing is trying to push to every activity that they can to save the hemlocks around Seneca Lake. And so after we heard that, then we also talked to people at Owasco Lake. They had a program led by Dana Hall in Skinny Atlas, and they're saving the hemlocks around their lake. So we were at a point where we just couldn't look away from this. We were compelled to take action, and we had a program that started last year, and we made it to treatments this year. So our key individual is Zeb Strickland. So he's a contract forestry expert, and he's doing all the treatments for us. He's the one that did this training. He developed a Survey 123 app so we could record all of our hemlocks that we want to do treatments with. And we've been very fortunate to have a relationship with Zeb, and we'll continue into the future. Next slide. The things that I want to talk about are why the hemlock initiative. What is the threat that the trees face, and a little bit more about that, and then what we can do about it. And this is one of the great things about this program is we can take action and we can save the hemlocks, and we are doing that. Finally, I'll just talk a little bit about the landowner engagement. We've had a lot of support from the landowners. We're going to need more because we're doing treatments on private land. Go ahead. So this slide shows the area where the hemlocks are located. If you know hemlocks at all, they're from Georgia all the way up to Maine, and they cut across New York State, but they're heavily in Pennsylvania and just about up to Lodi. So that's where we focused on. There are hemlocks north of there, but the majority are pretty much south of Lodi. These trees are fundamental species, and they are really developing an environment, an ecosystem that other species need to survive. They provide some shade to streams that helps fisheries, and primarily they're reducing runoff, which this program then is very similar to what we're doing with sediment nutrient reduction, and those activities correlate very well. Next. So what is the hemlock woolly adelgid? It's a tiny aphid about the size of a pinhead, and it injects its mouth parts right into the branches of the tree and drains the sap out of the tree. And then over about a 5-year period, once a tree is infected, it can be killed by the hemlock woolly adelgid. So what you see on there, those little woolly masses are their egg cases, and the tiny little black dot you can see sometimes with them would be the aphid itself. So by saving the hemlocks, we're saving the environment, we're saving the watershed, and we're reducing erosion and runoff into Seneca Lake. Next. So we started with ArcGIS, which is satellite photos that we could look at and find where the ravines are and where all the conifers are. So everything in yellow is the areas that we know that there's conifers and they're in ravines, and that combination is what we want to do treatments. There are other hemlocks in the area, and there's actually some nice big areas of hemlocks, but they're not our focus because we're really focused on reducing runoff into the lake. The red is 192 surveys, so we basically sampled all the way around our test area, and we've identified 4,000 treatable trees, and we've started doing treatments this year. Next. So there's 2 insecticides that you could use. Imidacloprid, which can last for up to 5 years. But if a tree is in serious trouble, we can use the other insecticide, dinotefuran, and it only lasts 1 year, but it can save a tree that's in real difficulty. So this is a picture of Zeb Strickland doing a treatment. We get the video to run. There it is. So this is called basal bark spraying. So we spray on the outside of the tree. When the tree's taking in water, it'll draw the insecticide into the tree and kill it. So we're very careful about where it's sprayed. And if we were going to do anything right near the lake, within 15 feet of the water or streams, then we would drill and inject the insecticide into the tree, so there's no chance that it's going into the water. At the bottom there is a note about the longer term. So when we first talked to Cornell, their focus is on biocontrols. And in the Pacific Northwest, the hemlock woolly adelgid is managed by a combination of beetles and silverflies that are natural predators. And the New York State Hemlock Initiative is to introduce those into our area. And they were introduced 10 years ago, starting near Glenora and in Watkins Glen. And they are proliferating, and we have a stable population. So long-term, we won't have to treat with insecticide. We'll be using the same type of biocontrols that is naturally occurring in the Pacific Northwest. And that's what Cornell's doing. Okay. So we have a 3-year plan of treatment. This is our first year. We did surveys. We're doing treatment this year, and we'll continue that, more surveys and more treatment over the next couple of years. We have funding from the Rose Foundation, and we've applied for a couple other grants. We haven't gotten anything else yet, but we have a good source of funding for this fall from the Rose Foundation. We're very appreciative of that. Okay. Any questions? Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. It's a great program. We have a super team of volunteers that are helping with doing the surveys, and we've had a strong team. Really, Bill's guidance has been fantastic on working on grant activities. Linda Sampson, Tony Shelton, and a few others. So really 2 teams, one working on getting funding and one team that's doing the surveying. Thank you.
Stream flow. Can you hear me? Right a second. Right up. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so I'm Mark Petzold, and I'm going to talk to you today about a new program called StreamFlow that we've been doing this year. Speak up, closer to the mic. Okay, where'd my charts go? Okay, StreamFlow. Why are we doing StreamFlow? First year we've done it. Next chart. Yeah, maybe. All right, so we know phosphorus is a key driver for HABs. But how do we know how much phosphorus is going in the lake? StreamFlow is going to help us answer that question. we have our 9-element plan for phosphorus reduction that Bill talked about, and that has an estimate of 235,000 pounds a year of phosphorus going into the lake. That's an estimate. It uses a model to create that, but you can actually measure it. So why not measure it? So this year we're collecting flow and nutrients at the same time we do the flow on 10 streams. And this is going to help us verify where the 90 plan estimate is. Is it close to being accurate? We're going to have more data that we can now put back into the model and rerun it to hopefully get a more effective or greater precision result. And then all these programs we've been talking about to reduce stream flow, reduce nutrients going into the lake. Over time, we should be able to see that actually happening because we're measuring what's going into the lake. And they're going to vary, the nutrient loads are going to vary every year. So that's another reason why you have to do it long term. So where are we measuring? Hopefully a lot of you are familiar with these creeks. There's 2 USGS gauges on Catherine and Cuke Outlet, so we don't have to measure those streams. We can just go to their website, pull the data. So the other 10 streams, Big Stream, Kashan, Wilson, Castle on the west side. And then on the east side, Reeder, Kendaya, Mill Creek, Breakneck Creek, Lonell Ridge, and Hector Falls. So there's 10 of them that we're doing. So just quickly, how do you measure stream flow? So there's 2 pieces to it, right? There's the velocity of the water. We have a flow meter that tells us the feet per second that the water is moving. So you can see in the picture, I'm holding the flow meter, it's in the water, it has a digital readout, tells me the feet per second. Then you measure the area that the flow is in, which gives you the square feet, multiplied 2 together, get cubic feet per second. So that tells you how many cubic feet of water every second are going down that stream. From that, you make a flow curve, and we're going to take a look at that on the next chart. And that's going to give us the cubic feet per second for any height of the water. We get that height through putting pressure sensors in the water. It's that little device down in the lower right corner. And that measures the atmospheric pressure. And as the water grows on top of the device, the pressure gets higher. You do some math and you figure out the height. And then there's different, kind of 2 different conditions here, right? There's low flow and there's high flow. The 90 plan says 80 to 90% of the phosphorus is going to come in during high flow. So as you can see, we're standing in the stream. How do you do that at high flow? If you're not John Halfman. So I decided, well, I'm going to do it for bridges. So the bridges give you known geometry, how far it is down to the creek bed, you can measure it. And from that, you can figure out the height of the water when you're doing your measuring. So John, that's a lot safer than what you did. He was telling me the story of being in the creeks and the rocks were hitting his ankles. So the water flow is so fast, it was picking up rocks. I chose the other way. So this is a sample flow curve. So the x-axis on the bottom is called the stage or the height of the water. And then the y is the cubic feet per second. So all the blue dots you see there are measurements I actually took on Wilson Creek. And there's about 20 of them. And Steve Shaw, the guy that has kind of been helping me with this, kind of told me I overachieved in the number of samples, but that's okay. That circle was supposed to be on the upper right point of that curve, which corresponds to about 30 inches of water height in Wilson Creek with a flow of almost 400 cubic feet per second. and that's the 400 going across. So from this curve, anywhere you go, if you go to 22.5 inches of water on the bottom and go up, that's about 200 cubic feet per second. So now with the sensor, it's telling you the height every hour. You can figure out the cubic feet per second every hour. Do the math, add it up, and you can figure out how many gallons per hour are going down the creek. In this case, that point in the upper right was about 10 million gallons an hour. That's Wilson Creek. Wilson Creek is not one of the bigger streams. It's a big stream, but it's not the big stream. So let's go look at Big Stream. So on 6/10, June 10th, we had quite a big storm, and the flow coming over Big Stream is pretty incredible. The lady that lives next door to Big Stream said her house was shaking all day just from the vibrations of that water hitting it. So at the bridge where I measured from, that water was moving about 10 feet per second. And that's one of the higher flows that I recorded in the past 6 months. The volume was 1,100 cubic feet per second. So that's about 30 million gallons an hour. So this kind of tells you the scope of the problem. You know, we talk about the simpler projects and trying to slow the water down, keep the phosphorus out of the lake. And what Bill said earlier, right? These are hard problems. There's not an easy fix for this, because it's a lot of water you're trying to control. So I haven't said like how many pounds of phosphorus have I found yet. That's because I don't have that answer yet. But like I said, when we make at the high water events, when we're doing the measurements of the flow, we also take a water sample. And 3 different labs have helped process those. Finger Lakes Institute, Community Science Institute, Grayson's here, and ESF. So labs are always hard to get your samples in sometimes, so I'm lucky to have 3 places to go. FLI and ESF both did the work on the grants that they had, so there's no cost to Pure Waters for that. And you can see that that's one around the lake. A sample of each one of those streams. Go around the lake, takes about 5 hours or so to do that. You can see how brown the 4th one is, and that was Big Stream. So once I get all the results back, we'll then make another curve, the phosphorus at the heights, and from that calculate pounds of phosphorus. And then we'll know at the end of the year, we'll be able to roll it all up for those 10 streams and see what the number is. Just like to thank Stephen Shaw of SUNY ESF. He's the guy that's kind of guided me. And then there are a bunch of people that gave site access, private landowners. And then there are a group of people that helped me actually do the measurements. So that's stream flow. Any questions?
The source of the phosphorus is from farms?
The source of the phosphorus. So the 9E plan says there's point sources and non-point sources. Non-point sources are going to be the largest, and farms are included in that. There's more than just farms, but farms are probably going to be the largest source of the phosphorus. So that's all part of the simpler projects that we talked about. They're putting retention ponds in, cover crops. The highway department's hydro seed when they dig ditches out. Right, there's a large effort, a lot of money being spent to help reduce the phosphorus. And this project should let us know, right, over time, as all that work gets done, we should see a reduction in the phosphorus coming to the lake. And that's a big if, because there's other things going on, right? There's climate change, which is driving more rain, more erosion. So all those projects going to be able to keep up with the other things going on. The hemlocks, right? If we lose the hemlocks in those gullies, that might be more erosion. So it's a complicated problem, a lot of moving parts. Any other questions?
Continue to measure this stuff for multiple years so that we have really good comparable data year to year.
That's the plan. And I always need more people to help. And if there's anybody in here that likes doing spreadsheet work, like with flow curves, maybe you're a retired PhD, come see me.
Yeah, just to continue on that is phosphorus is in control also. And so any of the soils are going to have phosphorus bound in it. The farms, of course, adding phosphorus, as are people in their yards with plants and things like that. So the farms are the bigger ones, but we've got a lot of different people putting fertilizers and various things on their properties too. So it's not one certain thing. There's septic systems that are not being kept up properly. There's water treatment plants that aren't being kept up properly. So it's a big problem. And basically, this is where our strategic plan important goal is to try to go after the 9-element plan, which is focused on phosphorus, but along with that is a lot of other nutrients and pollution elements too, is that keeping topsoil on the top of the ridge instead of in a lake is what it's all about. They should be interested in it. Why would you want to put more pay for more fertilizer than what you need? So for farmers, but for other people too. So we can start the other one. So the last of the three is another new project that we're doing. So these two projects that we just talked about, we're in the vanguard of the Finger Lakes doing a lot of stuff. Owasco did the hemlock earlier, but we're kind of the next one, getting on private land where 90% of the hemlocks are. That's out in front. Doing the stream monitoring, helping with the 9-element and the modeling, that's way out front. This is another area where we're working with the Finger Lakes Institute and doing research on a few questions. And I'll talk about those in a second, but this came about from discussions over this winter with Lisa Kleckner at Finger Lakes Institute. And we've been collaborating for years and years and years. But last year, I got so many calls and complaints about Cladophora that it's like, okay, so what can we do about it? So, it's rotting on my shoreline, it smells like a sewer. Yes, it does. We have it on our shoreline quite a bit too. So what is it? It's a macroalgae. Presumably people have seen it. It's a stringy, slimy, really thick, heavy kind of stuff. And if it's wet, you can't move it, really. I mean, people talk about getting it from their shorelines, and it's like you need a dump truck, and an excavator to go get it out there. Once it dries, you can get it out. But it's the early summer predominant species out there. So it soaks up all that phosphorus that's in there, and it's growing on all the hard surfaces. So the rocks, the swim ladders, the pilings on the docks, all those kind of things. It's on there. And then later in the summer, that water gets too warm and it dies off. And then when it dies off, that's when it comes to shore, when the winds are onshore, and boom, here you go. So that's really what it is. And in the Great Lakes Basin, since the zebra and quagga mussels will come in, excessive Cladophora. So much more than they used to experience has been anecdotally expressed all throughout the Great Lakes. So the Great Lakes Commission and DEC as part of that, they have a reporting tool on the Great Lakes. And I should have gotten a picture of that because the stuff on Lake Erie or Ontario is much, much more than what we get. I mean, I've had a foot thick on my beach, but it's pretty rare. But there they get it. They get places where it's really, really bad. So it's a bigger lake, a lot more Cladophora, a lot more on the shore, but we certainly get a lot, and we get it in certain places. And then usually when it breaks off and then it starts decaying, that phosphorus then is recycled in, and later in the summer is when the green algae and the cyanobacteria dominate in the lake, and now that phosphorus is available to it. So as we were talking, there were a number of research questions that we've been batting around actually for years. And the first one is like, why do we have HABs on the Finger Lakes? The phosphorus levels, not only on Seneca, where we should be too low theoretically, I think John told me that one time, but on Canandaigua, Skinny Atlas, who have much lower phosphorus levels than we do, they have a lot of HABs too. So why are those occurring? Why can we figure this out? And that's been a mystery for quite a while. The next one is that so what they're doing on the Great Lakes is trying to figure out if there's hotspots for this nuisance algae. So do we have those kind of hotspots here? What are there certain places that we see a lot of Cladophora accumulating on the shore? And then it was like, well, is that similar to where we see more HABs than other places? So that was another question. And then we noted that, okay, so we take phosphorus readings out in the middle of the lake, but maybe near shore, there's a lot more dynamic process going on. So is phosphorus varying, you know, where it's really high near shore because of X, Y, or Z, which we don't know yet, but maybe it's there. So he said, okay, well, let's take those and let's develop a little research project to start off to see if we can start shedding some light on those questions. So we built a survey 123 tool, which is just like the same platform that we use for HABs. They use it, the DEC uses it for their Cladophora program on the Great Lakes, and we just adapted a lot of their questions, and we sent that out to a number of people, and it's available on our website for even the public to use. But what we're doing is that we decided to just focus on the northern basin, so north of Long Point, for this year, and leverage what we did a few years ago is have certain dock locations where we're taking samples every week. So we take nutrient samples, we take, it's got chlorophyll, a number of things, and again, volunteers that are doing great work, and association students come in and get the samples, they pick them up, which is great. But every week, we've been doing this since the late May, and we're going to do it through mid-October. And so FLI is doing all the analysis on these. And then the students are coming out each month, and they're doing a survey of the weeds and what the plant life is like off in the general area of these docks. So we're correlating all these different things. And then, whoop, I went escape. Sorry, wrong one. All right. So we also, again, I talked about the HABs. So we have HAB sample bottles. If HABs occur, we get samples and we take them into FLI, and they can do that. And then FLI has their standard program. So out in the middle of the lake, they have their ship, their boat that goes out, and they take samples to scan them. And then they have a buoy that takes basic water quality data, meteorological data. And so we have all these data sources to help us correlate after we get through this season to see what we find out. All right, so what have we found out so far with Cladophora? So Cladophora is pretty much over, although it lasted pretty long this year. Usually we've seen, you know, late June, July is kind of the end of the season, but it lasted well into August this year. And people were using it. As you see, the number of reports and things, mostly in the northern basin, but I will say that it's a little bit of observer bias. There's a lot more people in the north than our the population density, I guess, would be a great way to say that, is a lot more people living on the lake in the north than there are in the south. It's a little bit sparser down there. But out of the 86 reports, most of them are from the north, a little bit more from the west. But one of the questions we ask is about those odors. You know, how does it smell? And if it's logical, if it was reported as that there's a lot of stuff on the shoreline, you tended to get more smells than if there's a little bit, and if there wasn't very much, it wasn't there. I put a link here for the map. I'm not going to pull it up. I think we'll try to get this kind of thing as we finish this summer, try to get this on the website that people can see it on our website. So what have we seen so far? Lisa isn't here, but the last I heard is that she's not seeing particularly different levels of phosphorus off our docks as they are in the middle of the lakes. The lake is pretty well mixed, and we're not seeing a lot. I will caveat that with we're not seeing a lot of rain and other stuff either, right? But an interesting thing, and these are maybe correlated or maybe not, maybe you've seen it, but in talking to people around the lake, is like, where's the weeds this year, right? And particularly milfoil and stuff. So what's up with that? I talked about Cladophora being around a little bit longer than what we've typically seen it. And then the other one, and I guess we're comparing to last year where it was, you know, HABs every day from mid-August through into October. The HABs are not as much this year. We had the one day in late July where they were all over, kind of like last year. But since then, kind of been hit or miss. And most of the ones, you know, we look at the picture. Mark is the head of our HABs program, and we look at the pictures, and it's almost like, well, there's cyanobacteria there, but it may not really fit the criteria for a HAB. So what's there is generally pretty light. So that's kind of interesting. But I noted that last year was very still. So we had weeks upon weeks of no wind. This year we've had quite a bit of wind. 2020, if you read last week's water quality newsletter, the drought this year actually is worse than what we saw in 2020. So we're at lower levels of the lake level at this time of year than we were even in 2020, which 2020 we only had, I think, 15 HAB reports the whole year. So I don't know if that's correlated or not, but those are so far. So where are we going? Obviously, we're going through the middle of October, so we've got a lot more data to collect. We're a little bit more than halfway through. Lisa will be doing a lot of the analysis and her students and professors and everybody. So hopefully in January, February, whenever she does her water quality conference, we'll get a kind of report out then, and we'll get she'll do a report. We've been collaborating with the DEC, the people that do the Cladophora reporting on the Great Lakes. So we'll get back with them, talk to them about it. And then of course, after we see what goes on this year, we'll see if it's worth doing again next year, whether we kind of continue at the same level, go, well, we didn't learn anything, we don't need to do it, or maybe we expand it to the full lake. and try to do a little bit more. So it's still a lot of questions to be done there. So just so some pictures. So obviously, this is what you see on the shoreline, these sort of things with a lot of the Cladophora, what it looks like on rocks underneath the water. So you may see that on a clear water day, but there's some confusion. So Cladophora can actually float. It can get a lot of air bubbles underneath it. So people see these little things floating. They go, I don't know what that is. Well, it is Cladophora. As massive as it is, it can still float. And that's our sampling pole. So to be safe off the dock, you put that down and there's a little check valve down here. And you get basically from here to here worth of water. And you put it in your little pitcher there in order to get your samples and everything. So it's a lot of fun. Again, good volunteers, people are very dedicated, and hopefully we'll learn something about what's going on. I think that's it. So I'll open it up. Any questions about this one, or I'll open it up for general questions? Okay. Sure.
Well, things you've seen this past year on Seneca, is that consistent with like how you went some of the other lakes?
I don't know. The question is whether what we're seeing is consistent with the other lakes. And of course, the answer is I don't know exactly. The drought's been everywhere, but I will say, there's so many different things going on in each lake. So this year we've gotten, last year we confirmed around gobies, for instance, in a lake, which go after quagga mussels and that sort of thing. Are they making a difference? There's a lot of changes. I was having another discussion earlier. The changes in the ecosystem are over the last 20 years are just tremendous. We were talking about smelt. I got here in 2014. People were smelting in Cashawn Creek. They disappeared a couple of years later. I don't know what happened. Nobody knows what happened. Nobody knows all these different things. There's other briefings about, rudd and alewives and all sorts of animals and the different plants that are there and all these different things. So it's a very dynamic situation, and just like we had the weeds thing this year. So what's going on with that? Will that be the same next year, or not? We had huge HABs last year. This year, what's different about this year that for some reason we're not seeing them? They may still be there and just not formal. I just don't know. I wish I did. I might win some prizes. Yeah.
I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but isn't you can address it immediately, but what's the status of the Greenwich for that?
Okay, the question is what the status of the Greenwich improvement. That's in litigation as far as I know. And I haven't seen anything about it recently. So the November's. So I think it's back to DEC. It got kicked back to redo the process again, is what I understand. And so it's back to DEC. Well, I don't know that we have an official position. I have a personal position about Bitcoin in general. But we support DEC enforcing the laws. That's our basic position. Is that the state needs to step up and do what they need to do.
Right, just want to make sure I understand. This year it seems like there's of mud floating all over.
Well, yeah, there are little clumps.
Floating back. Bacteria. Those on as well.
you say you see floating mats of cyanobacteria. Now cyanobacteria, I mean, it can get pretty, last year it got pretty thick at the northern end of the lake where it would last for multiple days. It would last overnight. Usually on Seneca, it would disappear and go back into the water. It can be pretty thick in some of the coves on the northern end of the lake, but I don't know that cyanobacteria is so small that it's unusual. You know, we haven't seen it where it would, you would see any three-dimensional sort of thing on it.
Bill, lake level?
Oh, surprised it took this long. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is about lake level. So obviously, that's kind of the story of the year. I think this year. So I alluded to 2020. That was the last time the lake level in September was quite so low, and we're below where that was. I just saw today that we're officially now in a drought. The drought was just north of us, and now it encompasses almost all the state. And so there's questions about, well, why is Seneca extremely low, whereas like Keuka and Cayuga may not be quite at the critical levels that we are. So we're unique in that we have to keep the canal going between Seneca and Cayuga. So there's locks and there's certain flow that has to go there. Whereas Keuka, they're down, they only have one gate open. Their only requirement is that they have to put enough down so that the waste treatment plant gets diluted with a certain amount. They're actually under that technical amount I just saw the other day. So they can try to hold back, you know, as much as they can. They're low, but not as critically low as we are. Cayuga doesn't have quite the number of locks and keeping the canal going. So again, they're low, but not as critically low as we are. And just to be honest, looking at the weather forecasts, I mean, people have to think of this as kind of mid-October. As if you're someone who has a lake level issue as far as, you know, watercraft and that sort of thing, you definitely need to start going, oh, wait, you know, I got to think about that because we're not getting rain soon and it's not going to get any better. Eric or John.
But it seems like common sense that in a drought, there's less runoff. I mean, there's less water coming into the lake, which means there's less phosphorus coming into the lake. At what point do you have enough data to say solidly that in a drought year, because of strictly the lack of inflow, you have less phosphorus and thus less pollutants?
Yeah, so the question is whether the drought year is causing less phosphorus in the lake and therefore fewer HABs. And it's a logical and a good question. Maybe John can come up and help with it before I fumble with it. But just as a thought is, as we look at the phosphorus level when we take measurements in the lake, it doesn't change all that much between this year and the other years. And we had, I think as was mentioned by Don, or maybe Hank, the lake was at, I mean, maybe the third or fourth highest it's ever been earlier this year. So we had a lot of water coming in a lot earlier. It was almost up to 448. Now it's down almost to 445. So a 3-foot swing in the summer. Last year, we didn't have a lot of rain during the rest of the year, but we had 2 big pulses that came in. But I think there's a difference between, there could be just as much cyanobacteria in the water column as there's been in any year. The question is whether that's the issue or whether the issue is what makes them come to the surface and cause HABs. And that's where perhaps winds or other conditions or I don't know what, the mussels, how are they involved? That's, in doing this now for a few years, other people for a lot more, it's just each year you go, oh, we think we got it. And then the next year it's like, oh, whatever we thought was wrong. Yeah, I don't remember. I have to go back to John's report on that one. We were still trying to go through and what can we correlate this stuff with? And it was just, we could never figure it out. It's complicated, obviously. I mean, otherwise we'd have figured it out. Steve, you had some?
Yeah, I was to say that, I've been on the boat last couple of weeks and, little bit of paths on the shoreline, but you can see the water.
So Steve Bronco is saying that, and out on the boat, you're seeing a little bit more of it in the middle of the lake than you are in the shoreline and stuff. Linda, you had something? Oh. Anybody else? Okay, again, thanks so much for coming. Great turnout. I hope that everybody got something out of tonight. Stay engaged. Keep helping us. If you see something, contact us, let us know. We've gotten so many things where somebody's been out on the lake, eyes on, going, what about this?